And welcome back to coverage here of the Neon Dynasty Championship. Marshall Sutcliffe with Cedric Phillips, and we're ready for lower round number 3. Now, the way that the bracket plays out is we've got 2 players lined up to play that. That's going to be Jonny Guttman facing down Eli Kassis.
Yep.
The winner of that gets the privilege of playing against Udai Mignano in the next round, and then the winner of that gets to play against Zach Dunn in the final. So that's the track we're on. One way to think about it is we've got 3 more rounds to go, right? This one, the next one, and then a best 2 out of 3 matches in our championship match as well. So right now, we're in single elimination mode. We're in winner go home mode, and we're going to see if it's going to be Jonny Guttman, really with a breakout performance here in this tournament, performing beautifully with mono white, facing down Eli Kassis, somebody who's been here before. Eli's put up really good results over the past few years, and he's got Orzhov Venture at the ready.
Eli kind of a hidden, weird to say, but like a hidden really, really, really solid career that's only continuing to be quite good. We're just seeing more and more from him over time. So to see him in this situation, you said he's been here before, and I've got a feeling, Marshall, he's going to be here again.
Let's take a look at the opening hands from our players. See some similarities there. Archon and Maria in the opener for both of them. 2 lander at the ready here for Jonny. But he's got a portable hole, an Evangel for a little later, Thalia, Archon, and an Inquisitor Captain. This is on the play.
Yeah, I think this is a keeper for Cassis, and I think Jonny, who has to put 2 cards back, is going to keep 2. I think this might just be portable hole and then 4-drop, potentially. Oh, only looks like 1 card has to go back. Excuse me. So yeah, portable hole is an easy one to put back and just play some magic.
Let your creatures do the talking here. Land go is going to kick things off, though. Just planes for Jonny. Eli's got Duress, and he's going to find out the hard way that this is not the matchup for Duress. Now, this is game 1. He doesn't have a choice, but ouch, all creatures.
Yeah, Duress mostly going to be a miss against the mono white deck, which you got to love if you're playing mono white. It basically means Eli did take a mulligan here. Now, there's a Thalia to kind of get things started, and that's actually going to make that March a little bit worse, too. So, not a bad start here for Jonny.
No, good little curve out. Next turn gets perhaps slightly awkward for him, but no, he's drawing a plains actually. Never mind. He gets to play his Archon and keep the curve rolling. Very nice.
But you couldn't tell that it was a plains? Huh? Give him some difficulty over there, partner?
I am not leading you back down this road.
Okay. All right.
I'll let you get your hit in and we'll move right on. Shattered Sanctum is going to enter battlefield tapped here for Eli Kassis. But he's going to kind of get that out of the way now as Archon of Emiria is going to hit, and that's going to allow this Plains to ETB untap. Ooh, power word kill off the top of the library. Not too bad, but you know what? He can shore up the ground game and do your favorite here, said get into that dungeon.
It's always the cave's entrance. How can you say no?
We had such high hopes, right, that we were going to be mad maging and all this stuff, but Lost Mine of Phandelver's definitely where you want to be. That translates over from Limited, where that was also the case. Inquisitor Captain is going to hit the battlefield on a beautiful little 2-3-4 curve out here from Jonny. And
Guardian Evangel's not bad.
Guardian Evangel. So that's an extra 2 damage he gets to chip in for here. Unfortunately, that extra Evangel from hand is going to go bye-bye. But he still has a backup in his hand as well. So just a beautiful curve on a mulligan here from Jonny.
Yeah, not too bad at all. 2-3-4, going wide on the battlefield, got a little bit in the air, got some stuff on the ground. Of course, you have a creature land. Now, Sideboarding Evangel in hand. Doesn't play great with Archon of Emiria, but, that just kind of is what it is at this stage of things. You're doing what you kind of want to be doing. Now, Cassis, got to think about, am I actually going to attack here? Going to send a 3-3 in? Might get blocked, may not. That's a real question right now.
Yeah, interesting timing here because he has to decide whether he wants Treasure or a 1-1, and that's going to be a big difference because the Sideboarding Evangel can just jump in front of Nadar here. But if there's a 1-1, even more so, right? It's like, okay, well, I don't want to trade this thing off for a token. That said, Eli Kassis could really use a Treasure because of Thalia providing that tax. So let's see what happens here.
Treasure it is.
Kind of a must block, given that the Nadar has Vigilance. Now, Sideboarding Evangel does unlock an attack next turn. So you could consider not, but it is in fact going to be the Sigardian Evangel blocking Nadar.
You could also... I don't think a double block is good there. I'm going to take that back. I was thinking out loud a little bit there.
Fair.
Yeah, because like, you know, if you go block and it's like, okay, kill the creature that blocked my Nadar. Now I have a 3/3 still on defense. You know, you could consider a double block there. Maybe. I'm not convinced that that's the right play to make, but it was an option. So
tough choice here for Eli Kassis, deciding between Archon of Emeria or a more expensive version of either Power Word Kill or March of Otherworldly Light. And he's decided just to play the Archon of Emeria. He's taking a look at March of Otherworldly Light and saying, well, I do have 2 extra white cards in hand. Maybe if push comes to shove, I could even use it to kill a creature here. Ooh, Faceless Haven, though, getting fired up.
Yeah, it's time to fire this bad boy up. Now, as I mentioned, Sigardian Evangel is going to just look a little bit worse given the Archons that are on the battlefield, but this is totally fine. Just serving on in here with 2 3/3s.
Tough spot here for Cassis. Boy, Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, doing her thing this game. No block. Down to 8 goes Eli. And that's going to be the turn here for Jonny.
Yeah,
big turn now for Cassis.
Yeah, it is. And Precipitous Drop is a little expensive.
Looks still pretty good. He could play it on Thalia and then still have Power Word Kill after that.
Yeah, so this is okay, actually. This looks like it's going to be... I'm not going to say 2 spells in 1 turn because of the Archons that are on the battlefield, but 2 spells over 2 turns.
Right over like a turn cycle.
Yeah, so I think that's not too bad here for Eli. And now you get a little Death Toucher here, too.
All right, so he's going to go with Triumphant Adventurer, and then I'm assuming that Power Word Kill is going to be on the menu.
Yeah, you got the option, right? You can cast it or you don't have to. Apparition's kind of interesting.
Ooh. Right when Eli thought maybe I'm starting to stabilize. We also have to keep in mind that Jonny can just play a Sigardian Evangel to take out one of these blockers temporarily, and if that leaves a big enough window, he could win the game on the spot. He is facing down one of the toughest synergies in the deck. He's got Archon of Emeria, even of his own on the battlefield. And then he's also running the Sigardian Evangel for the full non-bows.
Yeah, you got a little non-bow synergy there because Sigardian Evangel would be lovely right now if there was no non-bow energy, but it's very much there. Still relevant, though. Still, you know, you get a 3/1, you still get to tap something, so it's still a totally fine card.
And then the Snow-Covered Plains in hand for Jonny. Is this going to be lethal? Not quite.
I mean, I don't think we're going to see lethal damage come through this turn. I'll say that. Yeah, it will be an attack for 7. You play it, but if you play the Plains and then fire up the Faceless Haven, you can present lethal damage. It's not going to actually get lethal damage across, given Cassis' open mana. But
right, but you get him down to 1.
Yeah, and you're still impacting the battlefield. And actually, yeah, because this turn, I don't know if Jonny. Okay, I think he may be frustrated with himself because of something having to do with Archon. Right, so you saw him. He's expressive, so obviously something that he did this turn frustrated him, and maybe he was supposed to just tap the 2/3 as opposed to the 2/1, because by tapping the 2/1, the Thalia can't attack. Right, so if you tap the Archon, that means the Thalia is eligible to attack. So that might be where the frustration comes from this turn, is he didn't maximize his damage output this turn as far as what he could attack with.
But you can see the level that Jonny's playing on, because all of this is assuming a removal spell in hand here as well. If that wasn't the case, then he could just send with the Team Force the chump block on with the Archon on one of the 3/3s. But he's saying, no, I'm playing next level, right? I'm assuming here that Eli's found some type of removal spell for my turn, which he's 100% correct about. But it does mean that Eli's still at 5.
Yeah, the tough part here is, Jonny on that turn, I think his frustration comes as he just did not maximize the amount of damage he can deal. Maybe he also thought he had the ability, and I don't think this is the case, but maybe he thought he could go Sigardian into Skyclave Apparition. Obviously, he can't do that because of Archons that are on the battlefield.
No,
Either
I
way,
think you nailed it. I think
yeah.
he just would have preferred to tap down the 3 toughness creature to get
Yeah,
Thalia in there.
that's what I think the frustration point is there, because then Thalia would have been able to attack, and instead it wasn't
Definitely.
able to.
Interesting choice here. Fungi Cavern will shrink down a creature until your next turn, so that means that Eli won't take any hits here from the captain.
Oh, look at us keep venturing. Okay.
Yeah, this is a card in hand.
Yeah, and we can't forget there is 2 mana available and no taxing taking place because Thalia is no longer on the battlefield. So that means a power word kill can be played.
That's right. He does have to wait until Johnny's turn, but he can certainly do it. And that could be a very good target for it here as well.
Yeah, it can be. Now, whew, okay.
Yeah, if the team's coming in, then that power word kill can turn into a little 2-for-1 here.
Yeah, and I think if you're Johnny, I think you just kind of got to do this. You know, like you don't love it, but you know, sitting isn't great either. And if you just attack solo with Archon, I don't think that's particularly good either. So, all right, power word kill. I'm going to kill this. That means I'm going to get a 3/3. That'll allow me to block your Evangel. Okay. That's why the 2 points that was potentially missed last turn such a big deal, because Mono White has to do it all via the attack step. There are no lightning bolts to draw here.
That's right. Wow. So we've got a really close little game on our hands here. Eli Kassis carefully managing his mana and spells around Archon of Emeria to be able to cast, and prior to that, by the way, Thalia Guardian of Thraben, to be able to cast 1 on his turn, 1 on your turn, 1 on my turn, 1 on your turn for the past 2 turn cycles.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been creature removal spell, or I should say removal spell, the last sequence there. And that's right where he needs to be. Remember, we're in game number 1 as well. He had a duress that just bricked on turn 1. Like this is not optimized for the matchup. So he's kind of having to work with what he's got. And it looks like he wants to get right back in the dungeon again.
It's a good attack here by Eli. Now, I don't know which dungeon he's going to go into. My assumption is he's going to go in the Lost Mine, but I could be wrong about that. I mean, it's the only
Like
one we've really seen.
85%er.
Yeah, pretty much. Now, the Dungeon of the Mad Mage. I don't know this one as well.
Yeah, so you gain a life, and then the next one you get to scry 1.
Okay.
So it's similar, but a lot slower. The life gain has to be basically critical, right, for you to do that.
Yep. I'm going to assume if you're making the attack like that, well, he can't actually... Has he maybe left himself dead? Because there's an inability...
Does seem like it.
There's an inability to play...
He can't
Unless
play
my
2
eyes
spells?
deceive me, you can't play 2 spells. Well, you can't
Yeah.
play 2 spells because of Archon, so yeah,
Right.
never mind.
He just
Yeah, so
can't
now
at
it's
all.
just...
His
now it's just
mana also disallowed him from doing so.
Yeah, so this is just Apparition on your 2/1.
Yeah.
Hope you didn't have another removal spell,
Wow.
which he did.
The door
He was trying to get a little
open.
value.
Yeah, and Jonny Guttman's going to walk right through it and pick up
Okay.
game number 1. And you can see him look to the side because he made a slight misstep there. Slight missteps get very, very magnified when you're playing white-based aggro decks, as you described, Cedric, but he gets away with it. And Eli Kassis has a long road to go now. There's good news for him. He gets a sideboard, and his deck is well suited for the board here. He gets to bring in more removal spells and bring out those kind of blanks or the less effective cards. Maybe stuff that's too slow, that type of thing. So those get to go away, and he gets to improve his deck. The bad news, of course, is that he's down a game. He's going to have to win back-to-back games. And even if his win percentage is improved post-board, which I'm assuming it is, still, that's pretty tough to win 2 games.
Well, he should get the better of it after sideboard, just given how mid-range decks generally play against both aggressive and control decks, right? Again, if you're a mid-range deck, like this Orzhov Venture deck is, you're trying to split the difference of, I'm pretty good against control game 1, I'm pretty good against aggro game 1, I'm pretty good against the metagame game 1. You know, I'm like 45% against everything game 1. But guess what? In those sideboarded games, which there are more of than pre-boarded games, I get to get my stinkers out, I get to get awesome cards in, and then maybe I'll raise my win percentage to 60 or 65%. Because, and the reason you make that decision is because if I win game 1, oh man, I'm definitely going to win one of the next 2 because my deck gets so much better after sideboard. And as you can see here with Cassis, 2 Bloodchief's Thirst, 2 Meathook Massacres, Graveyard Trespassers, Cathar Commander, get those Duresses and Archons, which are quite poor, out of the deck. But to Johnny's credit, Marshall, his deck also getting quite a few tools to bring in.
Yeah, so what does he do? Like in general, what type of things do you do to pivot away from somebody who could bring in a whole bunch of removal spells, for example, like Eli can?
I mean, you can find cards that kind of let you go long. You know, if he's
Mhm.
bringing in a lot of removal spells, Planeswalkers are a great way to dodge removal spells. Or, you
Mhm.
know, something that might have like protection from black, or, you know, if I'm dating myself a little bit, a card like Revelark, where it's a 5 mana 4/3 flyer. You got to kill it. And then when you do kill it, you get something back, right?
Mhm.
It's stuff like that that is going to be advantageous in a situation like this. Or if we're looking at a card like Inquisitor Captain, cards that are multiple cards in one card, you know, stuff like that is what you're looking for when someone's loading up like this against you.
Looks pretty good from here. 2-lander with Sigardian Evangel, Brûle Cathar, a pair of Inquisitor Captains, and a Wandering Emperor. So, you know, on the slower side with the 3/4 drops, but that's a lot of power in hand there for Guttman.
Yep, and these mono white decks, they do play quite a few lands as well, so you can be somewhat comfortable keeping a 2-lander, thinking that my deck is going to cough up some lands, and there is the first of potentially many.
Some good stuff here for Eli Kassis. He's put a land back on top there with uh, Takenuma, and that's going to give him access to Vanishing Verse. Precipitous drop on his next turn if he wants, but looks like a good curve here for Eli.
Another thing worth noting here, too, you see a Sigardian Evangel being played now, but also one that was drawn. Sigardian Evangel in game one can be a lot worse because both players have Archons, but as we know in these matches, they're sideboarding them out because Archon's text is not relevant here. It's relevant against the Runes deck. So that means the Sigardian Evangel coming down and doing its, you know, casts multiple times in a turn, more realistic in the sideboard games.
Okay. Yeah, he did burn one here, though, so it got immediately killed by Eli, who says, okay, 3 power is good enough, but also I'm looking to get Nadar going, and I'm going to kill a potential blocker for that. Wow, Meat Hook Master going to the bottom?
That's a pretty telling statement because Eli looks like he wants land number 4 for Wandering Emperor number 1. So that
I
could be
see.
the plan there.
Yeah, he's got a lot of action here. Regardless, if he hits land 4, he could double spell with Precipitous Drop and Cathar Commando. If he doesn't, he can still just play Graveyard Trespasser. But here's Brutal Cathar to take out Nadar. That is a risky proposition, though, because when Nadar enters the battlefield, you could go right back into that dungeon.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Eli's going to get the opportunity to do. It looks like maybe twice here.
Double
So,
trouble. Yep.
yeah, Mine Tunnels is one, and I guess probably Dark Pool is the second
Drano.
one. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, you can't store room. You can't store room if you go into the mine tunnel. I know you already know this,
Duh.
having deeply studied that dungeon. But, you know, there's only a doorway into those 2 right rooms. But that does mean that he's also one step away from getting really the best payoff there, the card, right? I mean, that's what they work towards. Here's Sigardian Evangel number 2. But, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if Eli would even just cash in Nadar for a trade plus the card, right? At that point, you're pretty happy.
Yeah, because you've gotten a lot of value off of your Nadar at that point. You know, these incremental advantages that this Orzhov Venture deck is looking to accomplish, well, it's done a beautiful job of it this time. And Johnny, we saw the last game go, you know, 2, 3, 4, and then play stuff afterward. Not so much this game. Kind of stumbling and fumbling around a little bit. That Cave of the Frost Dragon would have preferred for that to be an untapped land. So you see the opportunity cost with playing that card as opposed to another snow-covered plains. Eli, he's off to a beautiful start this game, and it's only getting better.
Wow, this is getting really interesting with Valky off the top of the library, because now look at this. Wandering Emperor can come down, get a +1/+1 counter and first strike on Nadar. That's going to kill the Evangel, and then there's also a treasure token sitting there in case Eli finds himself in a position with a couple of more lands. He can play Valky as Tibalt, which is bigger and better than really anything that Johnny can do.
Well, things may change here a little bit. You see the Inquisitor Captain coming down, and
Ooh.
they may be thinking Brûle Cathar are going to try again to keep Nadar off the battlefield. Unsuccessful the first time, but might as well try again.
We see Inquisitor Captain's Vigilance being relevant against Wandering Emperor quite a bit this weekend as well.
That's a really good call. That has been it's a small interaction, but it's a positive one in favor of the white decks.
That's right. So now we can see Graveyard Trespasser plus Vanishing Verse, and that treasure token gets to stay intact as well. So even though Johnny keeps punching back, Eli just keeps hitting harder every single turn. He's developing further and further and really getting ahead. The Brutal Cathar has been a bit of a liability. Yes, it takes away a creature, but if it gets killed, which it did before, and it could here as well, then Nadar gets to enter the battlefield again. That would be the 3rd time that Nadar hits the battlefield, and that dungeon value really does start to add up over time.
Well, here comes an attack. Gonna try to at least get a little bit of work done here on the Wandering Emperor, unsuccessfully, of course. Looks like Graveyard Trespasser is interested in blocking. But let's do a Vanishing Verse first, it looks like. Okay.
Yeah, this is interesting as well. Lots of options there. Cathar Commando, also a 3-power blocker, but this is the choice. And as you can see, it's also a combat trick here.
Yep.
Super rough here for Jonny. Unless he has a response, which he does. He has Wandering Emperor of his own. Interesting choice there for Eli. He is looking down at that Valky, but figures he can find the land the natural way. Doesn't need to keep one on top.
It's actually kind of nice, this exchange too, because your Inquisitor Captain is a 4/4 that has Vigilance on defense. I suppose.
It was.
Yeah, I mean this.
It was.
Yeah. Good call.
Well,
No, you're
that
right.
was there.
Yeah. No, you're right.
That half a turn, it was awesome.
Yep.
My God, here we go. Tibalt, Cosmic Imposter. Every time we've seen this card, it has dominated. 7-mana Planeswalker is. I like how you put it before. You said with all that text on it, right? It's just so much better than anything that either of these, either mid-range or mono white, aggro-ish. Still leaning a little towards the middle ground, can do. It's just bigger and better.
Just so much dungeoning.
Yeah.
Ah, yes, the Goblin Lair. Sure.
Let's explore that side of the table here. I know, I'm curious.
we went down the right side. Now we're going to go down the left side.
That's right. Always the same dungeon, but
I am slightly disappointed by that, I'll be honest. I always want to see someone just explore just a little something else before this tournament's over. Just one time for me.
Yeah, I'd love a Mad Mage. That's the value dungeon. If you get all the way through the Mad Mage, you go off. It's insane. Yeah. But most of the time, these players are in a situation where they kind of need what they got right now just to keep themselves in the game. Now Tibalt's just doing Tibalt things, as you can see. Inquisitor Captain, I don't think it's going to trigger for Eli.
No, that seems unlikely.
Right, but he does get the 3/3 vigilance out of the deal, so that's nice. His deck not really well suited for the conditional nature of Inquisitor Captain.
And one of the things that you're seeing over the course of this game is, one, you're seeing how important it is for Jonny to, one, be on the play, two, curve out effectively, and three, how some of these cards that he plays in his deck, are time sensitive. What card am I talking about here? Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, mostly. At this point, that card stinks.
Yep.
Planeswalker's on the battlefield. Eli's got plenty of mana. So, I'm thinking, okay, so Johnny's got 2 dead cards in his hand. Faceless Haven, cool. Cave of the Frost Dragon. I mean, we're trying. We're trying with Cave of the Frost Dragon. But I don't know if you've noticed this, Marshall.
What's that?
Eli is at 22.
He is at 22. Yeah, the power kill's not going to work on the cave here, right? So he's just going to have to let Tibalt take a hit. Looks like it. But it does hit Skyclave Apparition. So that'll work.
Yep.
Perhaps even trying to set up for some type of a lethal scenario here. In the meantime, the value train continues to roll. Hey, there's a Sigardian Evangel.
Yeah, hey, that'll work. So let's see, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's like
this is a little bit of Johnny's own medicine here. We saw him with a spectacular top deck against Jim Davis of that exact card. And Eli says, I can do that too, even though it's yours.
Yep.
Rude.
Well,
but it is good enough for game number 2. Eli Kassis is going to even things up. And that's how he expects these games to go post-board, right? Where he has all these flexible answers and relatively fragile options there for Jonny. But I'm telling you, when you play against mono white, even if it's not like super streamlined, heavy one-drop version of it, it's scary. You do not get to stumble. And they have those sort of temporary gain cards where they take away one of your creatures. They have a creature on their side. And if you don't have the right answer at the right time, find yourself dead.
Well, let me tell you this. As a mono white mage myself, have been for about 20 years now. That's exactly how I wanted game 2 to go.
That's how you wanted it to go.
You think I'm joking? I'm not. Let me tell you why.
Okay.
If I'm gonna lose, just beat me badly. Eli at the end of the game was at 22. He got to do everything he wanted to on every turn of the game. Brutal Cathars, those are dead. Cool, get my dungeon back. Like, if you're gonna beat me, just beat the crap out of me, because guess what? I'm on the play game 3, which is where I want to be anyway. So if I'm going to lose game 2, have your best draw. Yes,
Yeah,
please.
also it's just, it's poor luck management, right? Like if you use up all your luck on game 2 and you don't save any for game 3, how do you expect to beat Jonny when he's on the play?
And look, I play these very linear, aggressive decks with no reach all the time. And here's when you're playing against a mid-range deck like Eli's and you have access to the deck list and everything, here's what you know. Winning the die roll is important, but even if I don't win the die roll in game 1, I got to win game 1, right? Because their deck gets appreciably better in game number 2 and game number 3. So if you're going to beat me in game 2, which you're probably going to do, sure, I don't care what it looks like. You're probably going to do it. Might as well waste like your good draw, quote unquote. And hopefully my game 3 on the play good draw is really good and yours kinds of stumbles and fumbles a little bit. Because if I'm Jonny, if I won 2-0, that means that Eli maybe mulligan game 2, draw didn't come together very well. Maybe I ran pretty good. I would have expected, if I'm Jonny in the situation, look, I won game 1. We're probably going to play the third game. So hopefully my game 3 draw on the play is a humdinger. And it's not a bad start.
I love this, Cedric. This is a perspective you can only get from somebody who's played thousands and thousands of matches with decks like this, right? Because you're just saying, like, this is a pattern you've seen before, right? Like, yeah, I get you game 1, I lose game 2 because I'm on the draw and you have an improved deck, but game 3 is where it all comes together. Let's see if it can happen here. Triumphant Adventure follows up Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, but there is another land drop and Infernal Grasp in hand here for Cassis, so he does have the answer. How does the rest of the hand look for Guttman right now?
It's just okay. You would have loved that land. You would have loved the draw for this turn to have been a spell, obviously. He kept 4 lands, 3 spells. He's kind of flooding out a little bit here. The start's all right. I do think it is appropriate to Apparition here. Just get this thing off the battlefield and keep moseying along. Now, we'll see what Cassis's play is going to be this turn. Maybe he wants to go into the dungeon here. Maybe not. We'll see.
Yeah, it is tempting for him to do so, as Nadar would be a really great way to stabilize the board if it were to survive. Just as a 3/3, and it also gets you a scry one where you're very much in the market for lands here. And that's what he's going to go for, and he doesn't want the trespasser. He could cast it next turn, but he just knows he needs lands. Oh no!
Yep.
So speaking of somebody who's played a lot of games with a deck like this, Cedric, this is one of the ways you can lose, right? You don't get to manipulate your library. If you just draw a bunch of lands, that's kind of it.
Yeah, no, so this is the old 4 land, 3 spell keep. I would have kept his hand too. He had a 2 drop in Thalia, 3 in Apparition, theoretically a 4 drop in Sideboarding Evangel, so it's a keep every time, and now you hope that your deck cooperates, and thus far, it is not. Now, he is going to get to add to his battlefield in a pretty meaningful way, come in here for 4 points of damage. He's doing a pretty nice job of going wide, but things are being a little unkind right now here for Jonny.
These next 2 turns could easily determine who advances past lower round 3. There's a land off the top of the library for Cassis.
Now,
boy, did he need that.
Worth noting here for Cassis, that's a lot of whites and not many black mana, but this little trip through the dungeon is going to generate a Mind Tunnel, and that Mind Tunnel is that second black mana that he's missing for that Meat Hook Massacre.
Wow. Jonny's in an interesting position because, as we said before, this is often a block that you kind of have to make because the creature has vigilance. But Jonny's got to be thinking about the top of his library now. Is there another Sideboarding Evangel? Is there a way to get maybe 2 creatures out of the way where you just take the 3 and keep as much power on board as possible? But he's going to suck it up here and trade off. It is a big game for him to get Nadar off the battlefield, no doubt about it. But look at this. Meat Hook Massacre post-combat is going to wipe the board and leave Eli with a 2/2 when all is said and done at 17 life.
Although, would have been nice to see a turn earlier.
That would have been good last turn.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't do quite so much here. Even the Infernal Grasp will be castable through it. Boy, that was a huge swing for Eli Kassis.
Yeah, really, really just things fortunate there for Eli in some respects, a little unfortunate there for Jonny. But look, if we're being honest here, Eli's deck, like I mentioned after the first game, it gets significantly better after sideboard. He knows it. Jonny knows it. Jonny's got to get a little bit fortunate in the sideboarded games. Game 2, he got absolutely destroyed, as we've already watched and talked about. And in this third game, the draw steps for the first couple of turns were pretty unkind. I mean, City Soccer Connoisseur will confirm that here for Eli just a moment as Jonny loses a land.
Little win here for Jonny. And that also signals to Eli that while he didn't literally see the other land, he now knows it's another land because that's
Correct.
the thing that costs 0.
Correct.
There's
now,
an Inquisitor Captain.
That's
is that
what I was
step one?
That is step one. So if you're Jonny, your draw steps have to look like this, which is, okay, you know, thing into thing, thing into thing, Inquisitor Captain into another thing. Like, that's the way that you get back into this game. It also involves Eli drawing a lot of lands or cards that are not particularly good, if we're just being 100% honest here, right? In order for Eli to lose, because Eli's hand's already pretty good, in order for him to lose, it's got to be like, oh, no, another land. Oh, no, another land. Oh, like I mean, he doesn't have Duress in his deck, but like something like a Duress, which is not particularly good. Like, at this stage, because Eli's sitting at 17, you know, has good cards in his hand, everything else, Jonny's got to draw like spell after spell after spell, and Eli, well, it's got to be not that so much.
Down to 14 falls Eli Kassis to the Spellbinder and just land go since he knows it's there anyway. Another Nadar Selfless Paladin off the top of the library here for Eli. Intrepid Adversary also hanging out in hand, as well as Infernal Grasp, and he has Wandering Emperor, but it is actually being taxed twice now. It costs 7 mana to get that 4 mana card on the battlefield.
Yep.
Ouch.
So that one's kind of out of the equation, but Nadar very much in the equation, and it's been very impactful in this matchup.
That's right, and that dungeon is getting cruised through here as well. Just one more step towards that Temple of Dumathoin, and if that happens, that's a card in hand, and the static ability on Nadar would trigger as well, pumping up the team here. So still a very precarious position now for Jonny. It looks like Eli's content to keep the adversary in hand. He could just play it here. You get a 3/1 lifelinker. It's not the worst. That's
don't
another
want to see
plan.
that. Yep, don't want to see that.
If you're in Jonny's seat, are you kind of thinking, okay, that's about it? Like, you know, not stop playing, but I needed to have something here, or realistically, I can't come back?
You really needed to have something there. It's got to be continuous draws. Now, you do have something to do on this turn. You do have Cave of the Frost Dragon to fire up and attack and bring your opponent down to 11, but you needed to keep momentum going that turn with maybe something like another copy of Inquisitor Captain or AO, the big dragon. Eli, you should be a mana. You should be a mana short from casting that.
Yes.
Yeah, so you get your 3 points in. You probably just you can make a decision to play the land or hold it, whatever. It seems somewhat minor, but you know there's a land.
There's another land, and Wandering Emperor is actually starting to get realistic here. Just another mana before it can come down. But is this the big turn for Intrepid Adversary? You can pay for the kicker twice on this thing. Whew, look at that. And remember, Nadar is about to go... Okay, go Ultimate's maybe a little strong, but I don't know what its name is after it gets through a dungeon, but it's going to get to that point, and that's another Anthem effect pumping the team here.
Now, one card I do want you to remember, of course, is the Guardian Evangel. That's a way to kind of get a lot of battlefield presence on and also clear up some attacks, right? You're able to play that, you know, the triggers, get more of them, play more of them, tap the creatures, and be able to get some damage through while also having more creatures on your battlefield. So, you know, we saw him peel that card against Jim Davis for the victory. It wouldn't be exactly a victory right now, but it would get him back into this game.
Wow, it's so close to being a victory. But it wouldn't be.
And it makes some sense why Eli's making it what's a really big attack, because Eli's job now is, you know what, I want to shorten this. Hello.
He actually drew the Sigardian Evangel.
Well.
So we have a game now?
We might have a game. We might have a game.
Because it doesn't seem good enough, right? Like, you play 2 of them, you tap down both things, you can't fire up the cave, so you're getting in for 8 to knock him down to 11. But remember, the Intrepid Adversary is a 6/4 with lifelink next turn. So even if you put up some blockers, the life total's going to go right back upwards again here for Cassis, and he has Infernal Grasp as well. This just became interesting, though.
Yeah, because how are you supposed to play this card, and what are you supposed to attack with? And as you mentioned, Intrepid Adversary is a bit of a problem because it is huge and has a lot of lifelinking.
Sigardian Evangel is unlike any card we've seen before, right? This is sort of the design space that you get when you do digital only, where you can kind of have cards appear out of nowhere and disappear and that kind of stuff. And look at the raw power that that brings to the table for the late game here for this white deck. 9 power onto the battlefield and a completely cleared away board as far as blockers go on the other side. But Jonny has to do combat math because he's at 2.
Now I want to know how many Sigardians he has in his deck. And he's playing the full 4. So if you attack like this, is there any way to stay alive? You know, so you deal 3 points of damage. Meathook Massacre static. I guess trigger. No? Okay, so Eli seems... I mean, Eli's facial expression leads me to believe that he knows that this game is roughly over? I think? He's going to play this pre-combat. So we got to take a look at the Meathook Massacre now, of course, because of the static on it, which is whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you gain a life. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses a life. So it is in Jonny's best interest to not kill any of Eli's creatures.
Oh, look at that. He can go into finally one of the other dungeons for a loss of just 1 life. Oh, and that's why he's looking at the Cathar Commando, because he can sacrifice it.
Yes.
And if he sacrifices it, he wins. He can just target the blood token or whatever. And that is enough.
Yep, he sees it.
Thanks to the Meathook Massacre for Eli Kassis to get the job done. He finishes the incredible run by Jonny as he gives us a quick wave goodbye. Honestly, a fantastic performance for him. But Eli Kassis